Oi, as I'm sure is bloody obvious, I am not your cult boyfriend. As you can tell on my pitch perfect Cockney accent, I am his bloody mental evil twin. Okay, so when you step back, when you put some distance between yourself and Pretty Little Liars, you can see it in its totality. You can see it as a whole. And 160 episodes, 7 seasons, I can step back and I can go, Pretty Little Liars is a fascinating experiment. An experiment within narratives, an experiment within genre, an experiment within characters, within archetypes, an exercise of different storytelling formats. Eh, It's a very, very fascinating piece of television on the whole. I'm Marlene King, the showrunner, the brains behind Pretty Little Liars, is kind of fearless in a large way, and that way is artfully. Uh, Pretty Little Liars is a show that I don't really think cares about mastery. I think it's an experiment in mystery storytelling within the teen drama landscape. I think that it is invaluable for sure. As a show, yeah, there's 1,000 mistakes within it, but I feel like there ought to be, because it's derived of B-movie exploitation. It's derived of teen drama, which is already a kind of hysterical subgenre of television to begin with. It is an experiment within modes of cinematic storytelling that are exploitative uh, in manifest. So there are going to be problems within every single season, or else it's holding back. And Pretty Little Liars is not a show that ever holds its punches, never pulls its punches, right? It always goes 1,000%. It sees a shark in the water, and you better believe I'm Marlene King, and the writers of Pretty Little Liars are going to jump it immediately without hesitation. I don't think I've ever seen a more intriguing postmodern experiment than Pretty Little Liars was. The flaws can obviously be argued away on the basis of genre bending. If Gossip Girl told us that our lives are gossip, if The OC told us that our lives are soap operas, if Dawson's Creek told us that our lives aren't movies, or maybe they are, Pretty Little Liars is telling us that our lives are exploitation. They're the products of exploitation genre tropes. Our lives are exploitative, and we are constantly being exploited. And how Pretty Little Liars expresses its thesis is through genre bending, is through complete exploration and transcendence of archetypes. It is through a mystery that is designed, crafted to be unfair, because Pretty Little Liars is a show that is far more interested and obsessed with exploring the mechanics of mystery rather than the mystery itself. Because it's interested in meta narratives and narratives and communication. It's interested in television. It's interested in the unfairness of mysteries. Every great mystery is like fundamentally an unfair one, because there has to be some sort of uh, dishonesty on the part of the author of the mystery in order for it to actually work properly. Blending that with teen drama, the most sensitive and hysterical subgenre of television possible, you get something that is kind of surprisingly jarring and rewarding. It's rewarding on an intellectual level because Pretty Little Liars is a show that navigated um, all of these complexities, not only of pathos, but of plot, of the plot mechanics. And I think by watching Pretty Little Liars, like, deconstruct every part of the mystery and teen drama format, you're really able to see the distinctions, of objects within the narrative, and you're also able to, just like a game, just like how the show gamifies trauma, gamifies exploitation, gamifies romance, and gamifies mystery, just like how teen dramas gamify high school. Y you're able to kind of see how it works, how each component of it works, and you're able to, like, because Pretty Little Liars will shove something where it's not supposed to go just to see the kind of, the machinations of it, just to see what would happen to the cogs of the narrative if it did force something where it doesn't ordinarily go. It takes every chance that it can. Um, and that makes Pretty Little Liars ultra fascinating. It makes it impossible to ignore. Pretty Little Liars season 7 is all over the place. First and foremost, I love the tongue-in-cheek I'm Marlene King cameo at the very end of the final episode, where Arya and Fitz are getting married, and they're like, "Does anyone have anything to say? Like, any reason why these two should not be wed? Speak now or forever hold your peace." And a cell phone goes off, and you have, war flashbacks of A texts from all the way back from season 1, and it's I'm Arlene King as the like wedding photographer in the very back, and she's like, "Oh, sorry," kind of meaning that the writers the writer's done. You don't have to actually worry about the auteur of the show, about the showrunner um, keeping our characters from a happy ending anymore. She's not going to interrupt, and the characters are free to hug each other and have that kind of happy ending. That was a lovely tongue-in-cheek moment. My God, I was not expecting it, and oh my, I grinned very wide at that. That was a nice touch. Season 7 is really dedicated to the idea of twins. Twins annoy the fuck out of me because I think that evil twins, that trope, is a sign of creative bankruptcy, but it's kind of forgivable in Pretty Little Liars on the basis of it has explored every other B movie trope possible, every single other one, and if it deliberately didn't explore evil twins, then that would be an act of cowardice. And I, Marlene King, is many things, but a coward is not one of them. So we explore twins through Jessica and Mary, Drake and De Laurentiis. Even Allison and Emily have a pair of twins. There are twin archetypes. There are mirrored scenarios within this season of the grand narrative of Pretty Little Liars, and of course, Spencer has a twin named Alex Drake. Now, Troyan Belisario, she commits to the bit. I think her accent is horrible. I don't know if it was meant to be like masterful as an accent. I think it's ridiculous. Her Cockney accent is absurd. But, so is everything else. So are the trappings. I think that Troyan Belisario, she is far and away the most impressive performer on all of Pretty Little Liars. I said this in the first season, and it's remained true until the very end. She acts circles around everyone else on the show. Often, the show gives her a lot to do, and she pulls it off. I think that I, Marlene King and company saw that, and in season 3, they gave her way too much to do, and she couldn't necessarily pull it off. And in season 7, once again, let's put everything on Troy and Belisario's shoulders. At least this time it was funny. And funny in a grotesque sort of exploitation movie way. It was funny. It was entertaining. Do I feel like it added much to the metaphorical value of the show? Not really. Not really at all. No, it was just the final shark, the boss, the big boss shark out there. The final shark of the show hadn't jumped yet, and I, Marlene King, was like, "All right, hold my beer. We're gonna do this fucking thing." And I get that she had to have an accent or something different about her so that we could differentiate her from Spencer. But I feel like there were other ways to do it that were kind of less distracting, probably is the nicest way to put it. I hate that accent. I hate that character. Why was she even crazy? She shouldn't even have been psychotic. Like in Pretty Little Liars, like psychopathy, um, deranged psychoses are, I guess, kind of transferable. They're contagious. Everyone goes a little crazy sometimes. I was so upset with season 6 because I didn't have any Jenna, and Jenna is best part of this entire show. The only truly genius contribution made by I. Marlene King within Pretty Little Liars is Jenna Marshall, this genre chameleon, this true muse of the show. Because within Jenna, within her dark and twisted and shadowy archetype, that even over like 6 entire seasons of actual appearances, never could be normalized. It's a dangerous component that is full of just a stylistic ecstasy. That's what you get with Jenna Marshall. And Tammin Sursok, her performance is perfect. She could steal a scene without saying a word. That is how powerful her physical poetry was. She is so stopping. And we get a lot of Jenna this season. I think we get the most Jenna that we've gotten since like season 3. Uh, and I loved every moment spent with her. The show itself is at its most inspired when it is focused on her, when she is at its center. That's why I think Jenna Marshall is like a symbolic muse of the show. She is that genre bending quality, the original genre bending quality from the first season. She is the transformative power of the show in manifest in physical form, and no one but Tammin Sursok could have performed the character, and no one but I. Marlene King, I think, could truly understand the capabilities, the seemingly endless capabilities of a character like Jenna Marshall, who blows my mind every time I think about her in depth. Every time I think about Jenna Marshall, my mind is completely blown because it's one of the most genius characters that I've ever seen in any form, in any piece of media. Jenna Marshall has so much physical poetry to her, so much power, so much like cinematic ecstasy to her that yeah, that I'm in your cult boyfriend paradise every time she's on screen. It's perfect. It's perfect. And I liked the amount of time we were able to spend with her this season. I especially liked that Jenna called in some muscle, a helper by the name of Noel Kahn. I love Noel Kahn. I've loved him since the first season. There's something of a wrecking ball about his archetype, about his character. There was kid was certainly a firecracker. The kid was trouble, and I wanted to see more and more and more of him. And in season 7, we find out that he's also like homicidal and psychopathic, which makes him have a lot in common with like most of the characters on the show. Because this show, like I said, being a psychopath is contagious. But I love hanging out with Noel. We get a lot of Noel in the first half of the season. In fact, the first half ends with Noel having the most brutal on-screen death of the entire show. He attacks the girls with an axe, and the axe falls out of his hand, lands like into the floor behind him, and the girls push him, and he stumbles and falls down, and must fall down directly with his neck on the axe blade, and just gets decapitated. His head rolls down the stairs in front of the other girls because they're split up at that time, and oh my god, Flo's curtains fade out on Noel Kahn. I love Noel Kahn. Um, he doesn't have like the same amount of power as Jenna Marshall, but what he has is still like exciting, and it's still sexy, and it's still like it's still completely cinematic. I loved being around Noel Kahn. I wish we got to know a little bit more about Noel Kahn, but there's also the less is more aspect of Noel that I kind of appreciate. I have to fill in the blanks on a lot of Noel's psyche, on a lot of Noel's like actual core as a human character. I have to fill in a lot of the blanks, and he becomes more deranged the more I try to figure him out. So I suppose I do appreciate the fact that I don't know everything about Noel. I know a decent amount about him, but we never truly saw him be emotionally vulnerable, and maybe that's because he's a sociopath and doesn't have those kinds of tender moments. Maybe the real Noel is this madman grinning with an axe, chasing girls down a hall, trying to murder them, talking about smelling their fear, something he learned from Jenna. Jenna. I'm so happy that Jenna came back in such a huge way in season seven, because the show desperately needed it. Season six is still like one of the worst seasons of television that I've ever watched. Season seven, it's still sloppy. It's still not great. Uh, in fact, it's still pretty bad. But you have to ask, is it deliberately kind of disorganized? Is it deliberately kind of vulgar in its writing? Is it deliberately like are the obscenities of its own betrayal of its own narrative, like are those deliberate? Because those are also tropes of B movies, of mystery, of teen drama even. Because every time Jenna Marshall is on screen, there is there's something transcendent about it. There's something amazing about it. And that's where you have to step back and look at it as a whole, right? Like I think Pretty Little Liars is an expansive, a giant um macro study. A giant like meta-analysis even, a giant experiment tying together all loose forms of like so-called like pulp literature or teen magazines, like tying all forms of like seemingly lowbrow material together to see just exactly what would happen if you unified these disparate parts, if you unified these unique components of so-called lowbrow material, lowbrow media. Like, what would happen if you unified them? Would you reach something transcendent, or is it just an interesting experiment or narrative exercise that lasts like 160 episodes? I think it is something transcendent. I think that it is something kind of phenomenal, and I think that the experiment paid off in a huge way by kind of reinventing the wheel. Teen drama, television itself, I don't think was completely the same after Pretty Little Liars came and, like a wrecking ball, um, knocked so many of the pieces down and put them back together in a Frankenstein's monster sort of way that still was, like sexy, alluring, and captivating. And I think that that's best represented in the physical poetry of Jenna Marshall, this blind, demonic girl walking around just scheming, you know? Just scheming murder, just scheming lies, just bending genres. Every room that she walks into, there's this ripple effect, there's this causality, there's this fucking wormhole of genre, of the trappings, of scenery, of atmosphere. Jenna Marshall is the vehicle for all of the transformative power of Pretty Little Liars, and Pretty Little Liars was a massively transformative show to the teen drama art form. And that's what makes Jenna Marshall the most genius contribution to the art form, because it was at its most free when it was exploring and framing, capturing Jenna Marshall. I love you, Jenna. That's dream girl quality right there. That's my new cult girlfriend. There are a lot of fascinating things about Pretty Little Liars as a whole. But like I said, the final season, season seven, is remarkably flawed. But you have to step back and look at it as this fully conceived experiment. And you have to basically act like Mona does when she first sees the game board in board game in Pretty Little Liars season seven. Now she kind of reverts back to loser Mona for a moment and then transforms once again. But you have to be like Mona. I think that I, Marlene King sees teen drama viewers as at least partly sociopathic, at least with some morbid curiosities. And I think that Mona is a perfect um, kind of double for the audience this season. I mean, she plays a double agent, and I think that the audience does too. I think the audience has become so involved with the mystery, and I'm Arlene King has become so involved in deconstruction. I'm sorry, in deconstructing just what it means to even be a viewer or a spectator and what is being viewed. Because the audience is a key member of any mystery. The audience is the most important invisible party of any cinematic mystery because it's the audience who you want to be the ones who are investigating. It's the audience who you want to trick and lie to, not necessarily the fictive characters in the mystery itself. You want them to be kind of like Mona, kind of playing all sides and looking at all angles and trying to figure out how this damn game of teen drama mystery truly operates. Like, what makes it tick? What makes it work so seemingly efficiently. And it works so efficiently because it's so dishonest and it's so unfair and it's so cinematic. I think that cinematic is a synonym for deceitful. Pretty Little Liars. The show is extremely pretty. The show has extremely attractive people in it. Mysteries are extremely attractive. Teen dramas are extremely attractive. They're pretty, but everything that is cinematic is a lie. Right, so I think the thesis is even in the title of the show itself, that I think we have to be like Mona and just allow the show to drive us a little crazy. I remember this show broke my brain back in season 3 when I wasn't prepared for just, the hyper reality of it all, which is wild that I'm talking about, like, French post-structuralist, like, philosophy when I'm talking about Pretty Little Liars, but it makes so much sense to me. Pretty Little Liars is a show that wants to drive its viewers a bit mad, and I think I, Marlene King knows that that is actually a something that's satisfiable within the viewer, and it's something that the viewer is yearning for. It's something the viewer has an appetite for becoming obsessed with a mystery or a show or a character or a fantasy. And I, Marlene King satisfies those, while at the same time, like simultaneously reinventing the wheel of mystery and of teen drama, which makes I, Marlene King a master in a very peculiar kind of way, because Pretty Little Liars is far from a masterpiece. But it might be more important than that. It might be more interesting than simply a masterpiece. It's dynamic becoming, it is not static being, it is constantly experimenting. The cogs are set in place. I'm Arlene King, put them there herself. And when you step back, you can see it working when it shouldn't. You can see everything works. You can see the experiment. And you're like Mona, first seeing that board game, and you're just in awe of the composition. Thank you, Pretty Little Liars, for being such a fascinating show for me to discover, for me to investigate, for me to analyze, and for me to watch. I greatly enjoyed my time in Rosewood.